indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay, we have quorum. Chris is on his way. Mary Kay, unfortunately, couldn't be with us today. We'll call the meeting to order. Confirmation of the proper meeting notice. It was properly noticed. There are no, I'm getting
You get feedback.
there are no minutes to approve at this time, no reports, so we're going to move on to the unfinished business, which are going through the updated schematics. The building committee and IDDC met, they did a great job, and they've given Josh their notes, so he does have them prepared on the slides. I think if it's the board's pleasure, we can go through them, have him acknowledge where the changes are, where the notes are from the two committees. And then if whatever the board members, we can ask at that time if there's any other comments or what have you. And then we also have some other items that will filter in, which were notes from T&T committee. So Josh, if you want to go ahead and kick it off.
Well, Bill Leach signed up to speak, so we'll have.
Oh, okay, before? Okay, sorry.
Just a quick one. I want to thank you for the opportunity for the IDDC to go over this review of these drawings. I appreciate Barb's persistence in getting a lot of good members on the committee, because that's made a world of difference. And Frank is the liaison, has been there the last couple of months or a year, so it's very good. I admit that drawings are really complex, and I appreciate the fact that the building committee and T&T have gone through and done all the hard work. We just went through and looked at what was bugging us. Josh is the key. He's been on top of it all. He's put all the red lines on for all the different comments. I don't know how he's kept up on it, but that's great. So I just want to encourage you to approve the red line comments. Some of them are oversights. We'd had approvals prior board of directors meetings, and somehow they just didn't get on the items. And there's some things they put on with good intent, but it's not what we needed. We don't need outlets in the floor in the gym and the aerobics room. So those things hopefully save a little money. And again, I just want to ask you to approve everything and get on with it so we can get to the bids. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Or?
No, that's all that have
Alrighty.
signed up for the meeting. So what I figured I would do is just go through, a lot of this is the same that we did a couple weeks ago now. I'll just go to the pages where one of the committees had a comment and we can discuss it. So on this page, it has all the ADA accessibility stuff. The biggest note was, we had talked about this before, and the board wanted to have both the horizontal and vertical bars, and that just hasn't showed up on the drawings yet. So I don't think we need to really discuss that. You already approved it. All right, so in the Cabana building, the main comment here was from the IDDC about the restrooms, the way they have them drawn, aren't exactly how they are now. The sinks and toilets are located in different positions. I just wanted the architect to be aware of this. I don't know that it will actually make much of a difference because they're going to be ripping it all apart. But when they get to the finished drawings, as long as they know where the existing stuff is correctly and where they need to move it to, it should be fine. So, and it does say in here that it's up to the contractor to verify the locations and accuracy of all that stuff when they go to do the bid. Do you guys have any comments or questions about that one?
No.
I had one on the first one. I had just a little comment on the first.
The 88 one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have seen, rather than having two different bars, a vertical and a horizontal, they actually make a diagonal one. And I would not be opposed to having a diagonal. I don't know about Chris, because that was one of the issues.
That's the whole thing, and also the comments I've gotten back is that a lot of people prefer both because it's a lot better for them overall, especially people that are using it and do have an issue or a problem, that for them it is much better, and a lot of the bathrooms do have the horizontal and the vertical. So,
Okay,
yeah.
I've never seen that, but
Yeah.
I've seen the diagonal, so.
I have seen the kind that are almost L-shaped, so you
Yes.
have both.
Yeah,
And that would be an acceptable,
Yes.
you know, contingent upon
Yeah.
whether they could get as opposed to two separate ones.
Right.
But as long as there's one plumb and one level.
yes, yeah.
Okay, so we have the note up here from the IDDC about the shower. So the way these drawings are, if it's bold, then usually that's something in the area that's changing. And you can see on here, the shower, it's really hard to see, but right, this little X is where the shower is in the women's and the men's. And that area isn't showing any real changes. So we just want to make sure that they are planning on ripping out the tile and putting, new tile in the showers. And then the mirror on the fitness room, right now, they have the mirror on this side, which is the same side over here on the aerobics. It'll be on the other side of the wall. So the mirror is where they have it in the drawing, but they would like it on this wall here, because that's where most of the weights and things that you'd want a mirror for over here. So those are the two notes.
Wasn't it something, Lori, about the flooring also in the bathrooms, or was it just the tiles? I thought there was a concern over,
That comes later.
That's noted later.
Yeah,
yeah, okay,
But
it's
yes,
basically for all bathrooms, so I have that on the finished schedule.
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Nothing changed, nothing changed. Okay, so need to clarify if we want fans installed in the craft room or just the junction boxes. So like I said, if it's grayed out, then they're not doing anything. But if it's blackened in like you see over here and in this section, they're putting the fans. So here we have existing fans, but in the card room where it's being extended, they're gonna add another fan there. So that way it keeps it uniform. But in the craft room right now, we just have junction boxes.
So I thought the theory was if they have a fan now, we would give them a fan. So the craft room has a fan now, so I would have assumed we would have installed them.
So if you guys are all.
Is it, though, are the junction boxes going in different places, or? I mean, as
Right
far-
now, there's nothing in that room.
Right, so I think,
There are ceiling fans in the card. in
Are
the
there?
Existing card room, yes.
Okay, so there are
There's-
two, but they're
ours
gonna
is
be in
two.
different locations.
right, so they're gonna be in different locations, so they'd have to run new junction boxes anyway. And I think where it comes back to is that we had said we would want, or have IDDC pick the fans they wanted, because usually what the contractor provides is, I mean, that's the only comment I have.
Go ahead, Todd, you're gonna say the same thing I'm gonna say.
All of the fans, my only thing is all the fans should be the same. So if they're
Right.
providing, if the contractor is providing some of the fans, they should probably provide all the fans. I'm okay,
I don't know, I just, and Laurie, you can correct me, you're here, I think the reason why we were looking at us providing the fans and replacing whatever the ones we have, because you want them all to look the same, would be because we typically, I mean, aesthetically, we might want something a little different. Theirs is gonna be more of a contractor grade, possibly, or just whatever they can get the cheapest. So, I mean, if we're gonna do it, my personal opinion, and it's just my opinion, I think we should allow the committee, who's worked so hard on making sure the aesthetics are good, to let them make the choice. I'm not saying, yeah, we put fans in there, but let them choose what they want.
Terry, as I recall, that was our discussion.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So then my note is gonna change to, they're not to supply any ceiling fans, and that we will, as long as they have the junction boxes there, we will buy the ceiling fans and have them installed separate of this. That's, you guys understand, because that's all, because right now, they're planning on putting some
Right.
ceiling fans in, some are just staying junction.
Or could they just give us a choice of fans? Rather than us, I hate piecemealing this. I mean, we're talking about that with the air conditioners too. It's like,
Well,
where does it end? I
Well,
mean,
the previous board meeting, we had said that we wanted them to be able to pick the fans. And, I mean, you could say, okay, well, you get to choose between these 3 fans, and
Exactly.
they look like garbage. But yeah, but what if they don't like them?
No, where we choose, just like a house, when you're buying a house, you pick out which flooring, which paint. We're gonna do all that, I assume.
To a certain extent.
Yeah, but not
And
all the
fans,
way.
the same thing. Why can't we pick out which fans? I mean, just put that in the contract. Rather
Well,
than
we
saying,
wouldn't-
we're gonna buy the fans.
Well, we wouldn't get to go out and choose, like, I want this particular fan. They're gonna come up, because when they're pricing out the project, they're gonna price it out and say, okay, like the flooring, you've got, this is the grade, whatever, here's your 3 colors, choose, which one do you want? And the same way with fixtures and stuff like that, I
Well,
mean,
usually what I've experienced is they give you an allowance for the fans. And then you can pick from their supply, or you can buy your own. But I just don't like the idea that say, don't include the fans in this bid.
So can we have them install fans that we provide?
I'm sure we could do any of that. I mean,
Yeah.
you could have it out of there and tell them that you
Yeah.
want them to do it later.
Right,
And they're
right.
just gonna charge you for it.
Right, but I figure they're here, they're on site. If we hand them fans, that's gonna be a lot. I would think that would be a little less expensive than having them come back once everything's done.
The other way is like Barb said, you could like, and I think they probably will give you like grade levels and then an allowance attached to that. And so if you try and get something that's more premium than what they budgeted for, you might have to pay for a little
right,
bit
it'd be
of
like a change order.
I picture that. Now, whether we get to pick the exact fan, like somebody falls in love with one at Lowe's, and
Right.
they're gonna say, well, we can't, that's not what, yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to do that, but I do think there'll be some type of, allowance attached to it.
Frank, what do you think?
I'm fine with the allowance. I think if we buy the fans and ask them to put them up, they might do that, but that might smack of bringing your own eggs to the diner for breakfast.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, the more important thing, I think, is that we would want these fans switched on a gang box. So you have a fan rheostat switch.
Well, I believe they're all put like on a switch now.
I just want to make sure that that's
Yeah.
good, because a lot of times, we don't want that click, click, click thing. Every time somebody wants to turn on a fan, onto the fan, with the,
Chain.
Well, the fan will come with that, you just remove it.
well, no, I understand. Believe me, I've installed dozens of fans. I'm saying that in the specs, we need to have where it says that all fans will be governed by a rheostat wall switch. The other thing we might want to decide now is whether we want, DC motors in the fans and things like that. Those are typically better, but we don't want remotes, and we want them switched at the wall.
So they are switched,
Okay?
because it's
Just wanna
drawn
make
in.
sure.
Now, if you want a specific type of switch, we didn't indicate that.
No, but it's a typical rheostat switch. It's, high, low, medium, off.
Multi-speed.
Yeah, multi-speed rheostat type switch. There's many different kinds.
Okay, so I'll put on there that you want a rheostat switch, because right now it just
Yeah,
says
it's
a
not
wall
just,
switch.
what Frank's saying, it's just not on and off.
Okay,
Right.
got it. All right, so to be clear, we're going to have wherever there's a junction box.
Well, in those rooms, we need to discuss the social hall when we get to that.
All right, so keep going.
So what did we,
Decide.
So right now I have the understanding that we're okay with the allowance.
okay?
And that if there should be a fan in that room, we'll have them bid for the fan in that room.
Okay.
Now, the social hall area are areas where we typically haven't had fans before.
Right. And we
You
That's-
guys need to decide if you wanna just go junction box or you wanna actually have
Right.
fans put.
And do we want to go through all the notes, or do we want to, since there's no notes on the next one, but we do have the social halls next?
Okay, we'll just skip to that one then.
So I thought the call on the hall was, since we don't have them yet, we were just gonna do the
Junction
box.
boxes, exactly, which I think that's better, and the only, and I guess now is a good time to bring it up and see what you all think, after the notes from TNT, where we want to ensure that the speakers, you know, stay where they are. We ages ago, I don't know when they hired a company, but the Legacy hired a company to come in and figure out where these speakers were supposed to go in order to ensure proper balance. So in some of the drawings, it's like they've been moved, some of the other ones maybe not. So I think one of the most important things is that we make sure that those aren't moved, because then we're gonna throw off the balance in the room. So when looking at the junction boxes, I think that the or the Powell or whoever needs to know that we want those to stay where they are.
So that's just a matter of adding the speaker locations into the plan
Right.
and making sure they understand that has a higher priority than the fan location.
Right.
I have a more, kind of stupid question. The architect didn't look at audio at all?
Audio, like what they call low voltage systems, they were not drawing plans specifically for that, no.
No.
So
And
that
was in
wasn't
our
included
proposal.
in their contract?
No.
Correct.
Okay.
So I just think that's important. And the other thing that they mentioned, and that's why I think maybe it's a good idea, we, you know, like, just do the junction boxes in here so we can add the fans when, if we feel, once we figure out, then when they redo the HVAC system, that, you know, we need them or we don't. One of the other concerns that was brought up by TNT was that if you're using the speaker systems and you get the fans on, you're gonna get like a warbling effect with the noise from the speakers. Yeah. So just so everybody knows and takes that into
So
consideration.
Terry, how many fans are we talking in here?
Well, the way that the drawing is, it's what, 2, 4, 6, I think?
So,
Can we do 6 without affecting the sound system?
so I think,
Well, were there-
we have them.
Depends where they're placed.
Excuse me?
Depends where
They're
they're
placed.
I would, yeah. So are we gonna get input from TNT as to where we wanna place?
Well, they sent the drawings and I
Oh, yeah, I got
emailed all that out.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I know I'm interrupting you, and I apologize to my fellow board members and to the gallery. You deserve better than me being here late, but we've got lights, we've got air coming in, we've got return, and we've got fire suppression. Plus, we have audio. So where are we gonna put the fans? That's gonna block something. The thing that the building committee kept saying over and over and over and over, that's a wonderful thing that you want fans, but you've got so much stuff up there already. So maybe this is a moot point, and it's a wonderful thing that we might want fans. Maybe we should have floor fans where people could, you know, direct them accordingly. We do have those. But to put ceiling fans or even junction boxes up there, I think we're gonna have a real hard issue finding the proper place to put them. And like they say, being a piano tuner, the last thing you want when you're trying to tune a piano is having a fan on, because that does have the warble effect. So there's a lot of problems.
So would it now be the time to go back to the architect and say, right, junction boxes are a lower priority than the sound?
Yes.
Where would these fit in? And if they come back and say you can't, then at least we know you can't. But I would think we at least get it from the drawing and sort of let them know what our concern is.
I just don't know if, like Josh was saying, since the audio was not something that's part of the contract, and that's not their area of expertise, you'd have to have somebody else. that
Well,
would
there's
be
a,
able to
there's a
help.
good chance you can put the junction boxes up there.
Yeah.
Without them having to move the speakers. Well,
Right.
if you have 6 fans going in there and you're using the audio,
Yeah,
it's not gonna work out.
No, it's not.
No, but.
Because the fan coverage is at some point going to go over those speakers.
Right, but the room gets used for more than just sound, right?
Agreed.
Right. So
Now-
when there's a club in there and they're doing,
Aerobics or something, yeah.
or it's the Hockey Bears or whatever the group is that just wants the air. You're fine.
Now, one of the things that TNT said in their notes to us was they asked if we could look at upgrading the tonnage of the air conditioning because of the issue when trying to cool this larger room. You see that note?
Well, yeah, but that's where we already have the,
Well, I'm
Yeah.
wondering, would you, if you did that, would you need the fans? That's what
no,
I'm
you
wondering.
probably would not.
If I could interject.
Yes, absolutely, please, go ahead.
So, before we do anything with air conditionings, because we're changing the windows to double glazed windows, we are going to need, and they should do this, a new manual J calculation, which is a heat load calculation for every building and every room. Then they will size appropriately the correct tonnage of the AC. Look at the whole junction boxes with the fans thing. I'm just gonna say it because it's not gonna be that popular, okay? This was kind of a give and take. There were a few people that were very, very adamant that they wanted ceiling fans in the Burgundy room. There was another mindset that because this is a commercial building, you don't typically see ceiling fans in like a banquet room. Any of the other 55 plus communities we've gone to, I have not seen ceiling fans in like what I would consider a banquet room. So it got to be a contentious issue. And so at that time we kind of said, well, look at, why don't we at least consider junction boxes, okay? And that kind of like quelled the contentiousness. My thinking is that because that is a suspended ceiling, we would not necessarily even need to have the junction boxes done now because it's not like you're ripping apart drywall to fish wires and everything to do junction boxes. There is a hierarchy of needs. Fire suppression is first, lighting is second, you know, speakers and AC, well, AC ducts are third, speakers would be fourth. You know, you're fighting for real estate for these ceiling fans. If you do have ceiling fans in there, you do get the warbling effect, I guess, for the sound, but worse than that, you could often get a strobe effect from all the lighting. If the AC is correct, we shouldn't need it. If we're 100% wrong, okay, worst case scenario is they move some ceiling tiles and they do it as a remodel later. But if we're gonna do the junction boxes, that's fine, because we said that maybe we would do that for a halfway. But I would like to see that as a separate line item, just like what we did on the last building project across the street. When you have things that are contentiousness or maybe not totally needed, you have it as a separate line item. So if we do have to value engineer after the bids come in, that's an easy thing to strike off. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Barb, do you have anything to comment on, or?
Well, I agree with Frank. The stroke effect of the light, oh, I'm sorry. I tend to agree with Frank, and I'm concerned more about the strobe lights because of the aesthetics of that, and playing bingo under strobe lights is not real fun. But putting the junction boxes in now would be, like you say, if it's a separate line item, we could knock it down later on, or we could add it back when we need the fans. But I mean, we've lived this long without the fans, and if the air conditioner's upgraded and it's cooler, I don't see a need for the fans.
Right, Todd?
So I'd like to put in the boxes, I don't want to put in the fans, I think it's relatively cheap insurance, I'm fine with it as a line item, so that if we look at this later, we go, oh God, you know. But, so I would like to see them stay, but I think the idea of having them separate is not that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with a separate line item. I do have concerns too, like this, almost like the strobe effect or whatever. But I just want to make sure that it's, I don't know how we would note it, but that it does not change the placement of the speakers. I mean, because if we have to turn around and redo that, that's going to be another whole issue. So we want to make sure that Powell knows that we want the speakers to stay where they are. And then they got to figure out the junction boxes in or around it, I guess, somehow.
Yep. And if they need to reduce the number of junction boxes
Right.
because of what's up there, then
Yeah.
we have their recommendation.
Chris?
I'm just looking at the ceilings now while everybody's talking, it's like, yeah, where are you gonna put the junction boxes
Yeah.
that's not gonna affect something?
Yeah.
If we have to put the junction boxes, I can live with that. I just assume that we didn't put them in. I think Frank was correct, but I can go either way.
Dave?
I'm with Chris. I'd prefer that we just forego the junction boxes altogether. As Frank suggested, if we need to do something later on, then we can always do that later on. And also the fact that we would get a re-engineered air conditioning system, I think hopefully that would take care of the issue in this facility, so that it's cool enough, for whatever we're using it for.
Can I just add one?
Sure.
One last
absolutely.
thing, I apologize. And this is not to take away from what IDDC did. We ask for the moon and sometimes we can't quite get there. Just kind of like bowling. Anyway, so we appreciate all the work and the things that you've asked for, but this is one, I think it's just gonna be a little bit of a stretch. If we can do it later on, I think what Frank said with a line item, that's a good idea, if we can do it, yeah.
Okay, so I guess then the question would be, especially after what Frank's input or whatever, does anybody, would we need a motion to
I
take
think
a mo-
if we're gonna change something, you guys should
Okay.
vote on that.
So I guess the question would be then, does anyone want to make a motion that at this time, we don't put the junction boxes in and add it later if needed after we,
I'll make a motion that we do not put the junction boxes in the social hall and that we deal with that later if required.
I second the motion.
So just to be clear, by later, we mean once the entire renovation is done.
if necessary, once the AC. All right, there's a motion and a second. Anyone else have anything else to say? If not, we'll call for a vote. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, so if we can make that note.
Okay.
Moving on.
So the next set of notes are the IDDC in the gym layout has equipment that they are planning on putting in where this door area would be. And the whole purpose of this door was basically for moving equipment in and out of the room. So they don't want it to necessarily be used as a door regularly or to be labeled as an egress point. So I put the note on there that we need to explain to them what we plan on using that door for and see if there's some way to either change the route or not have it put in the plans as an egress point, so we don't get ourselves into trouble with any fire inspections or anything like that.
So those doors would be used to move equipment in or out of the gym and also as a fire escape?
No,
No,
the plan
not
is
as
to
a
just
fire.
use them for,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't, and really, it's, whatever you guys are doing with the screen is really distracting.
Was it me?
So basically,
Speaking of my glasses.
the door should just, we have a door in the gym now, and we use it to go in and out with equipment, it doesn't get used. And that's the idea, is to have it used that way, put equipment there, otherwise we lose a huge
Chunk.
chunk of
Yeah.
space in the
So we don't need it for emergency egress?
I'm hoping we don't.
Well, that's sort of what we want to validate. If you
Yeah.
leave the plan as is, they're gonna put an exit sign above the door and you cannot block it.
Right.
If they can rewrite the plan so it's not shown as an exit, then we get to keep the door, but you can put a piece of equipment in front of it.
Okay.
I think Ray, I don't want to speak for Ray because he's not here today, but Ray is really on top of this because that was his forte in his job. And I pretty much believe he distinctly said that that was not going to be a problem as long as we had enough secondary egress, that
Right.
was
Well, then I'm fine with it if Ray said.
Right, and we would have to have appropriate signage, like we would have to have a sign on the exterior saying, enter through other door, and you would have to have a sign on it, saying that this is not an emergency egress, but The architect knows all that. The architect knows about the emergency lighting and all that stuff, and they would guide us appropriately. So I think what Josh is saying is he just wants to double check with the architect to make sure that is our intent, not to have that being used, because if it is an emergency egress, you couldn't have equipment in front of it, and we want to have equipment in front of that, so.
And there would be no exit sign, I assume,
No.
like there is
Yeah,
here.
right, that's up to the code enforcement officer, you know, but typically, that is correct. Typically, there is not an exit sign if it's not a needed exit, because it confuses people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and the building committee, Ray did say that he didn't see any problems, so.
Right.
Can you zoom out a little bit so we can see the whole page? I know you're trying to get it so everybody can see everything, but it's just not gonna happen with these plans. So, all right. On here is where Terry brought up earlier, they were concerned that this page basically outlines what the finishes should be in each of the rooms,
Right.
what door types there are, all that stuff. So I have two notes. One is the bathrooms in all the buildings. Right now, they are set for ceramic tile, according to this, but the IDDC wants it to be the vinyl flooring.
Yep.
And then the other is the doors. Each room has what type of door they're supposed to be. We do have notes that we want a couple of doors with windows in certain locations, and I notated that on those particular drawings. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody read through this and is comfortable with the door types that are being used there, and there's no concerns with that. The other thing that I talked to ACT about our access control, and right now all of our doors have like a retrofitted system to make a door that doesn't normally have, you know, magnetic controls. That's all put in. So we could have all that stuff removed, and as long as they use a certain type of handle, what's it called? You know the name.
Panic hardware.
Panic hardware that has electronics in it and the right type of joint on the door, they won't have to have magnets on any of the doors, and the handle themselves will open the doors, so we don't have to use the buttons anymore.
That would be
So I
great.
just need to make sure that that gets relayed to the architect as well.
That
Yeah,
is
so
a lot
it
better.
should make it easier for them to install it again instead of having to drill and modify our existing doors.
Yeah.
So Josh, that sounded like it helps us get out the door. Do we still need magnets or a card reader to get in the door?
Yes, you will still need that, but it just eliminates the pushing the button or having to,
Okay.
you know, tear apart the door essentially to make it a magnetic lock. It just does it all through the handle. So any comments on this one?
Just one question there. So the men and women's restroom out in the cabana is gonna be ceramic, correct? That's the only one that's gonna be ceramic tile.
If that's what it says.
That's what it says, yeah. Everything else is vinyl, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even, the thing with the ceramic too, I don't know, I thought it was mainly gonna be like a concrete finish, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's,
Does it have ceramic in the cabana?
yeah, it says ceramic tile.
Well, it's-
And I thought it was,
I thought we just wanted a non.
yeah,
Yeah.
non-slip concrete sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch.
Yeah.
Needs a good coefficient of friction, because so many people walk in there with like
Wet.
bare feet.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, nothing on here. So there is a note when we get into the fitness building about the cabinets, but I'm not gonna point it out here. All right, so now we're into the foundation plan for the fitness and admin building.
Yeah.
notes here. There was some discussion at the building committee about how the walls will be built for out here. And right now, we have pillars that are holding up your covering over your walkway. What they're basically gonna have to do is remove those pillars, and then it'll just be a block wall that goes up to the roof. And they had some questions about how that would be laid out, but they were overall happy with the plan that they have.
There's a square beam underneath those pillars, so yeah, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I don't know if
I do.
they're gonna remove it. I know that.
Yeah, good. You're gonna have to, yeah.
Nothing noted here. You just jump. All right, and then as far as the mechanicals in this, it's pretty the same as it was before, no notes. That all looks good. So we have, the IDDC looked at the plan, and there's some outlets in the fitness room and the aerobics room. They're not necessary. So we're going to ask them to remove that. And then importantly, they need additional outlets on the walls to be able to
Right.
fit the equipment that needs to be plugged in. So that's what those notes are. So the lighting, right now you have ceiling fans and you have all of the lighting in this room. Throughout this whole thing, everybody's been really concerned about the amount of lighting that's being used, and it might be too much. So the recommendation from the building committee is in rooms like this, we should have multiple switches, so it turns on like half the lights instead of turning them all on at once, just in case you.
So much the same way as we have in Burger King, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And I think in larger rooms like the fitness, maybe even the craft room, places like that where we could basically break it down into two different lighting circuits.
Did the building committee mention anything about actually putting all the switches together instead of some being there, some being over here, some being over there?
The building committee didn't, but TNT in this building did.
Good. Thank
But
you.
I think that will be the case in, like, let's use the fitness room. Instead of running one, you'll just run two, and it'll run like the outside lights or the inside. They'll figure it out, but
Okay.
it would make sense to have the switches in the beginning, the entrance of the room for there, and then here we've notated that we want it close to the TNT closet because that's where they tend to control most of the lights.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
And there will, of course, be a light switch as you enter the room as well,
Right.
but you'll have one control in like that location. All right, did anybody have any questions about that building or concerns about that one? Okay. And this is the billiards extension. It just shows the beam there. There was some discussion about that from the building committee, and they had a concern about it not calling out the certain type of beam. But I talked to Alan, who was the person who brought up that concern, and we went through the details of the plan and were able to identify what it was, and he was comfortable with that.
He was satisfied.
Yeah. Alright. That's just showing the air conditioning plans. Okay, so in this building, the first note we have is there are existing 4 outlets. They would like one left in the room. This is the library. So right now there are 4 outlets in there for the craft room. They would like one approximately in the center, or what would be the center of the room, to be used if we put a table there and they have access so
Right.
nobody trips on the cords. And then the door into the multi-purpose library room, they would like that to have a see-through, window
Door,
there.
yeah. Mhm.
And then in the, what will be the craft room, they have outlined 4 outlets on the floor there. They would like 5, and they want them spread out differently, not just run throughout the room. So more of a,
W?
sure, yeah, more, that way it's not, because you're probably not gonna line your tables up exactly like that.
Right.
Right, so. Just, Lori, like a W type, is that what they're looking at?
How did you get a microphone?
She knows people, okay?
They know who has the big mouth. That's
What
who they
is
gave
up
it
with
to.
that?
No, he gave it to me. It was in our very first, plan to you back in December, how they wanted them spaced out. And I think it was 2, 1, and then 2.
Okay.
Kind of maybe an M shape or upside down.
At H, yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
But
Yeah,
it was
and
in
also-
the very first drawing.
I'll send that. I put in there indicated in previous recommendations. That's, look at the drawing if they want the exact
Sorry.
locations.
Yeah.
So,
Good question.
anybody else have any comments?
Nope.
All right, pool table lights and the can lights. Right now, the drawing's showing these 3 bulb, like drop-down lights that would go over the pool tables. I understand that we want to do something different, but for the way that we're bidding this, we're just interested in the junction box or the outlet that would be up there to hang that, and then we'll identify that light later. The big thing is to have 2 switches so that they don't, because right now the drawing shows 1 switch will turn on all the can lights as well as that pool table light. And that's probably not the way they're gonna want it. And, we probably should also consider adding, like where this is split, you know, where it's not 1 light turns on the whole entire room. You might want to do it where two tables at a time, like this first one, when you come in, we'll turn the can lights on for the first 2 bays, and then this one over here has its own. I don't know.
Frank?
hurt.
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, Frank?
I would just think common sense would dictate we should, for the primary lights for the pool table when you're playing, okay, and they want those perimeter lights for that, they should just turn on separately, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
You know, because,
So like 3 zones?
yeah, I mean, it's a switch, it's
Right.
59 cents, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
So, and then the beauty of that is it doesn't have to be, the outlet that would be up there doesn't have to be centered perfectly, because it's so much easier to install these perimeter lights and have them perfect, and you don't have to have the junction box perfect like you would if you had a 3 or 4 light billiard light. That would have to be absolutely perfect, so.
Well, they're all 3 of those options are recessed from the ceiling, and you can align them differently, right? Because they all hang. They're essentially.
Yes, but the perimeter lights hang all the way around. It's like there'll be 4 wires on, like above each corner
Sure.
of the pool table. And so the other beauty of it is if a pool table has to be moved 2 inches this way or 2 inches that way, that's easily done. Whereas if you just had a junction box for a conventional billiard light, it would have to be perfectly in the center of that pool table, and that pool table could not be moved.
Okay. And then at some point we have to figure out what those lights are, and are we putting those in, or are we gonna ask them to install those?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They're going to be special ordered, and they're easy to install, and it's just running some wire and
Okay.
or not wire, it's just the hanging. Yeah, it's not a big deal, but they can install them, or we can install them. We'll see.
I would think the more that we get them to install,
Yeah.
and the more done the buildings are when we're done.
Yeah, I think that was Barbara's feeling too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel that
and
way
then we
strongly.
can just say that we'll provide the lights. They'll install and we'll provide the lights.
Is there still a controversy about the lights that'll be over the table?
No.
I know
No.
that we've had
No,
some
no.
discussion. yeah.
No, I think we all came to the agreement that, you know, if that's what they wanted, we didn't have a problem with it. It's, you know, like you were saying, we get the junction boxes, have them installed, and just say we provide the lights.
Right.
Yeah, so at some point we're gonna need to get pricing on those. And I don't know what they are yet. I have.
Do you
Yeah,
have
I
a
mean, I can-
description?
Yeah,
Josh, do you have
I
a
get it.
description for those lights that we can give to the?
Yeah, we have the website and everything.
Okay. So yeah, if you could email that to me so that I could start to get that together.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other comments about lights? So it's, my notes are gonna be that the pool table lights are going to be individual and then everything else is gonna be on one switch? Does that work?
Yep.
And maybe dimmer, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although the billiard lights, we do not want on a dimmer. We don't want
They'll have their
that.
own switch, I
Right, but
understand.
just the can
Just
the
want to
can
make
lights.
sure.
Yeah, the can lights.
Well, and perimeter lights, we can
Right.
All right, so now we're into social hall. No notes on this. All right, here are our notes. So, we'll start with the kitchen meeting room. The door that goes between the kitchen and what will be the meeting room is gonna have a window, so somebody doesn't get knocked out. And then, the 20 amp outlets along this wall, they, apparently this is the crock pot station on this wall, so we need to have,
More outlets, right?
additional outlets to the wall, should be 6 total, and they need to be on a 20 amp circuit so that they don't blow it when they blow the wall in.
Question on that. Right now, we have 8 20 amp back there. So they
They only
want,
need 6, because I got 2 ovens. 6
well,
is
we
all
got
I
8,
get.
and we've got 8 already. They may not realize, they've got a little slash. This is something that the Pancake Breakfast did 15, 16 years ago. They raised money, they brought in an electrician and had these 20 amp plugs, outlets put in there. So there's already 8 outlets. There's nothing wrong if they want 1 or 2 more, or just change the other 2 outlets or 3 outlets and make those 20 amp. That would be okay. We just add those instead of 15, make them 20. Because they're already in place, we just need to beef them up.
Yeah, but it would seem to me if they've already got 8 20 amp outlets, that's what we ought to put in, no less, right? Not 6.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, no, I would say if they want some additional,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
but
just,
no less.
there's 3 other outlets there, just,
Code
Yeah.
dictates that every kitchen needs a minimum of 2 20 amp outlets.
we've got.
Or not outlets, circuits. You need 2 20 amp circuits.
Okay.
They need to be GFCI protected. And I thought I heard people say in the past that too many crock pots tripped the circuit.
Okay.
Okay, so I would err on the side of caution that we want at least 3 or 4 20 amp circuits in there. So you
We
don't.
added 3 years ago. There's 3 added 20 amp circuits in the dining room.
Okay.
They're quads.
Okay. So as long as we have adequate, you know, not only enough 20 amp outlets, but enough 20 amp circuits.
Circuits, yeah.
Yes.
So the question is, are we gonna do 6, are we gonna do 8, or what are we gonna do?
Well, Ralph wants to steal some of those and put them over the stage too.
Yeah.
So,
You can,
whatever,
You could see them.
Then I would go to at least 8. I mean, now is the time to do it.
right, Ralph, do you want to explain what you're looking for in regards to that?
just the notes right here.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I know, I just didn't know if anybody wanted to ask him.
So it would seem to me if TNT needs some over the stage, wouldn't they be additional, not stealing from?
You
The
have
kitchen.
so much room on your panel.
Right.
I understand.
Yeah. And
I
that
don't
thing-
want to steal them. I just want to tap them when they're not being used, because chances are, anytime there's something going out in the maple room, and they're using it for food, there won't be a show going on, or vice versa. So that's really wasted power back there that we could tap on and still use 60% of the time. There wouldn't be any conflict because the lighting is very, very low current. But there are 3 extra circuits back there that I could use in the ceiling over here. And they're existing, we just need to tap them.
You'll just have to see how many open breaker, you know, slots there are in the existing box. I don't see any problem. We should put in what we want, and then we'll find out if there's gonna be a problem,
Yeah.
that's all.
Okay, so are we comfortable with my notes, or do I need
Yes.
to change them?
Well, I thought you said 6, I'm back again to the number of 20 amp outlets in the kitchen meeting room. Is it 6 or is it 8?
You shouldn't need 8, I mean, that's.
Well, you didn't hear what Chris said.
Yeah, we've got 8 now.
So each one of those is set up for its own,
The 4 quads
yeah,
are each 20 amps, as I understood. That's how they were put in.
so you want 8 of those?
There already is,
Are you talking receptacles or circuits?
receptacles.
Okay, we're talking circuits.
Yeah.
Okay, circuits, so you want 4 more circuits, in other words.
Well, I don't know if, we need to see how many circuits are given to the kitchen now. Code says you have a minimum of 2. If there's more than that, if there's 4, if there's 5, who knows what I'd have to look. It might be adequate, it might be fine. We just want to make sure we have enough circuits so no circuits are blown when you have 15 crock pots going back there.
And
That's
2
a-
ovens?
Yeah.
Well, ovens would be on a
I'm
separate
just being-
240
I'm
amp
just being
circuit.
smart aleck. Okay,
I could live with your notes.
yeah, and so, all right. And then over the stage, like we talked about, they want 3 20 amp double duplex outlets, whatever. that's
Double
what it
gang.
is. Yeah. So each one of those would have its own 20 amp, is that?
Now, those are bridged across to the crock pots. That's what I was suggesting.
We should have enough of everything, just.
Okay.
You've got 3 circuits
Same circuit
on
breaker.
a wall that could be tapped, and those 3 additional ones that are required are tapped. Those are
Okay.
Duplex tapped onto the quads.
Got it, that's, so, are my notes are good for that?
That's simple.
Yes,
Yep.
it would be the electrician's prerogative to put those additional receptacles on whatever circuit they deem fine, so it's fine, everything's fine.
All right, then over here, we've got another outlet that we're gonna, I put a note in here for the sconces, essentially, that's not the location, but they need to put the sconces in.
Yeah.
And then, they would like, TNT would like 3 20 amp double duplex outlets above this, basically the wall here, to put a light bar on as well. And then lighting controls, I put in there that we want to have a central control by the room here.
Yep.
And that dimmer should be added as well. Any comments on that?
No.
And then the only note for the cabana was, we wanted to make sure that they have the ability to put a mini split system in the maintenance room. Just some type of air conditioning.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
And adding to that, then they're thinking about a roll-up garage door, so it may or may not be able to be insulated, but if they're gonna put the mini split in, those exterior walls and the ceiling above would all have to be insulated.
Okay? So,
Well, you're gonna want them insulated, right?
That's what I'm saying, yes, yeah.
yeah, I think the idea would be not so much to like have it controlled all the time, because that door is probably gonna be open a lot, but something that could kick on and blow cold air while, they're in there with the door closed working.
Right, and
Or
the mini
like on a
split would
break or
also
something
have
like
the
that.
ability to heat, if they need heat
Sure.
anytime in the winter.
But
So-
the idea would there be a thermostat in there for the maintenance, for John, right?
Well, you can have, like, a lot of them, like, they're just basically little, like, remote thermostats, and you can turn it on, off, or set the temp that it'll adjust to.
Yeah.
So I need to add in there that we need to insulate all that stuff?
Well, that the room should be insulated if it's gonna be conditioned.
Okay. So I don't know what happened with our computer, Dad.
I think we're finished anyway.
Oh, we haven't even got started.
Don't be silly.
I don't have any more people.
Okay, so we talked about TNT stuff, right? And then, we had also talked, or I sent you guys an email about the, air conditioners. Do we wanna just forget that?
I guess that's.
I mean, and let me say, we're not approving any proposal.
No, we're not.
This is a discussion
Right.
on whether we do it.
Right, so that, I think Frank brought up a lot of valid points, in email that, you know, it's pros and cons. I mean, we may save some money now, but then we don't know how long that refrigerant, our current refrigerant is gonna be around, or the cost it's gonna be later on.
Right, so when we talked about it the other day,
Why don't you explain to the folks out there, because I don't think they know what we're talking about.
Folks at home,
Yeah, and to the folks at home, just real quick if you could, yeah. just
okay,
a thumbnail.
and Josh could probably do this just as well, if not better than I could, but, so current air conditioning systems, it used to be that you could count on them pretty good for like 13 to 17 years or so. That's no longer the case. They're being made cheaper, and the consensus among the industry is when you have an AC system, anything, if you get any more than 10 years, that's icing on the cake. So in terms of our budget, we should probably, you know, factor in replacing units every 10 years or so. And if you don't have to, if you squeeze a couple of more years out of them, well, that's great. So most of ours, except for I think 2 or 3, and Josh, tell me if I'm wrong, because you should probably be the one explaining this. It would probably be wise to consider replacing like 14 out of the 17 that we have. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because one of them's combined, so it's like,
Yeah, we're gonna lose one unit with the
Yes.
remodel, and then the 2 that we have that are less than 5 years old, we'll keep. Everything else should be replaced.
so this is just something in the talking stage now, but we have the option of replacing 14 out of those 17 units that we have now, separate from the building project. And if that's done, we could probably enjoy some savings. But here's the kicker. This is where it gets complex. 2025 air conditioning standards change. And all of our air conditioners now are R410A refrigerant. That goes away in 2025 in a few months. So is it wise to save money getting them now and getting 410A, knowing that there might be a chance of having to pay more or having problems getting replacement refrigerant after 2025? Or do you stay ahead of the curve and say, let's factor in getting the 2025 units with a different refrigerant? However, those could probably, they foresee them costing 20 to 25% more. So there's good and bad either way. So I think the common sense compromise, Josh did get a ballpark figure for all new units with 410A. I would like to see him get estimates for those units using the new refrigerant, so we have something to compare to.
I was told I can't get right now.
You can't get, just to interject, because we unfortunately have this situation at home right now. And what we were told was that they're not even out there to where you can get the prices on, unfortunately, right this minute, so.
I'm surprised at that, because that's not what I've read online, but I'll defer to what you're saying.
Yeah.
The other thing is what we want to consider doing is, the quote was for, I think, SEER 14 or 15? SEER?
Yeah, depending on,
Okay,
which year.
so SEER is an energy rating, and the rule of thumb has always been for every SEER you go up, you save roughly 10% in electric costs. So the mindset is, if you're going to keep your house for the next 10 years, you should probably get the highest SEER you can afford within reason, because you'll save money. There'll be a return on your investment. On the other hand, if you're gonna sell a house in a year or two, get the least amount, you know. We're not selling this place. We plan on keeping all the buildings here for 10 years or so. So if it's within budget, we should entertain getting an estimate for higher SEER units also.
So Frank, one of the things you mentioned as we were going through the plans is at some point we need some type of R manual or an L manual that would tell us what size air conditioners we need.
Yeah, that's
because
called a
of the-
manual J. Yeah,
Okay.
it's just
So-
a heat load calculation.
So we really can't buy, if we wanted to buy the old or the existing ones now, we don't know what size to buy until that's done.
They would
correct?
do that as part of the package. They have to do a new manual J.
Right, but I'm just saying, we can't make a decision until that's done.
We wouldn't be able to make a decision on the existing units, but it wouldn't change that much. Like, let's say we have a 3-ton unit, you know, with a new manual J with better windows or whatever, it might end up really calculating to a, 2.5-ton unit instead of a 3-ton unit, and there wouldn't be much difference in price at all. So.
I've asked this question before to my fellow board members and never got any feedback, but I'm wondering, I thought one of the things the architect was gonna do was to look at our HVAC requirements throughout the complex and hopefully improve upon what we have today in terms of equipment. And yet I still see in the plans the same number of units. And how many is it total, Josh?
16.
16.
17 now,
Yeah.
so there was
Yeah.
a reduction.
Yeah, so 16, air handler and HVAC units. And I'm wondering why we aren't consolidating on some of these and using dampers in the system to control the zones, rather than all these individual units.
Right. So I am not the expert here on this, but a lot of times when you go bigger units, especially commercial, that's what you normally see, like doctor's offices and everything. Those units are typically, the condensing units are up on the roof. And we don't want that on our brand new tile roof out there.
But do you know why that is? Why are they on the roof?
Because it's a huge amount of ducting that has to be dispersed throughout the building, and it's hard to do that from one central location outside.
I had that same question, David, because I kind of expected maybe they would consolidate some and having bigger units. The answer I got back, and I'm not sure this is true, but the answer I got back is that might involve a lot of change in our existing ductwork above the ceilings, and so that would make it perhaps cost prohibitive. So,
Is that the response you got from the architect's office?
That's the response that I got from 2 different people.
In the architect's office?
So we had, to take a step back to your original question, you had an architect come out, and not just an architect, but their mechanical team come out and look at your existing systems and make recommendations. I then took that information and got with our vendor who does our maintenance and said, can you look at this?
No, I understand that, yeah, so
Yeah.
what can you do for me?
Yeah, and are there efficiencies that can be improved? All of that. So like, if you take this building, for example, this one would make the most sense for a large commercial type unit. How are you gonna get the ducting from this side of the building to that side of the building? Because you have to run it through that. And then also, if you don't put it on the roof, which is not an option for us, where are you gonna run that ducting up the side of the building? Because no matter where you run it, it's gonna be a giant eyesore. And then you gotta remove all the stuff that's up there as well, which is a lot. So cost-wise, you're better off paying, $8,000 a unit on average than paying maybe much more and redoing the whole mechanicals of the building.
Okay, so, given what Frank has just recently told us today, if we, replace those units now before we do the reconstruction of the complex, or if we do it as part of the rehab of the complex, that tells me we're gonna have how many units? 14 or 15 units that are all the same year, right? And if they have a 10-year lifespan, we're gonna have a big bill 10 years from now.
Well,
Yeah, but that's no different than when they
Right.
built the buildings.
yeah,
And that sort of levels itself out, because 10 is your average, some will be 8, some will be 12. So it's not, I would be amazed, although the reserve plan would probably show a big lump in 10 years. But the reality says you're gonna get 2 in year 8, 3 in year 9, right? I mean, it's, and then once that's done, the next time, now that span is even a larger span.
right. And
We
real-
should be,
I'm sorry, no, that's okay. I was just saying real quick too, with regards to the refrigerant, when we were dealing with MUNS today. So what they were saying was that there's a large amount of the current refrigerant, and they feel that's gonna be around for a while. So, there again, it just depends. But, the other thing they noted was that each of the different various ACs like Carrier or Rheem or whatever, they're gonna have their own version of this new refrigerant. So whatever we go with, whether it's Carrier or Rheem or whatever, you're gonna, whoever certain,
You got to stick with
you gotta
them.
stick with them because they're gonna have their own specific refrigerant. So that's just, I just wanna throw that out there because I didn't know that till today myself.
And
So
that-
there's not one standard? then
No, there
for
will
the-
not be one standard.
Well, yes and no. Carrier, when they changed to R410A years ago, everybody's just uses R410A, okay? Carrier packaged their own and they called it Puron instead of like Freon. So, but it's essentially R410A. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. I think there will be enough R410A for everybody's needs because necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
And all of us probably have R410A units, and we may need more refrigerant. Now, mind you, it's a sealed system, so in a perfect world, you should never need more refrigerant in your system. So I'm not too worried about that. To answer your other question, as Todd said, we should be putting away 1/10 of the cost of a unit every year, regardless of when it becomes due. And I'm sure we're doing that. I'm sure we're fine. I'm not worried about not having money for units. And we will enjoy increased efficiency. So I think, and this is just my opinion, if I'm wrong, but I think we need to take a step back and say to yourself, do you want to save money and think about getting them before the change and taking them out of the equation of the bid process and all that? Or do you feel more comfortable going with the newer technology that will be the future? And if so, they may go up 20-25% or so, but the timing of when we need them, they should be readily available. And we should probably just decide that, because if you want to do that, we just wait and we just include them in the bid process.
Yeah, Barbara?
If I could, I believe Todd is the one that suggested that if we decide to take it out of the bid package, which again, I have a problem with because we're really piecemealing then, but if we decide to take the air conditioning out of the package, we don't need to replace all 17 of them right now. Wait till we need to replace them. What's the hurry?
Well, so the reason I brought this up to begin with is because when I had them look at this, they said, okay, here's what the market looks like, here's what he said, you need to replace all of them except for 2. So if you do it all at once before 2025,
It's cheaper.
but if you look at that bid, it's $88,000, but they took $12,000 off of it. That's almost 2 units that they're discounting. So when you replace one at a time, like we just replaced the one over here, that was like $8,000. And now we're looking at the cost being like $7,000 per unit.
Right.
So it does save quite a bit. Plus, if you wait, then that 25% increase for the new product has to be done as well. So that was the only reason I brought it up is, hey, you're looking at changing 10 units, you might save 20 grand if you do it now versus putting it into the building.
Right.
The other thing is when you hire a general contractor for something, the general always puts an overhead on what he's gonna hire a sub to do. So you might think you're getting a savings for having them do a whole project, but really, you already got an AC contractor, and if they're doing the whole thing, there's no sub involved. So I just thought it was something I should point out to you guys. I kind of regret that I didn't.
No,
but-
I'm very glad that you,
So,
no, we're
so
glad that
basically,
you
we
did.
have three options. We can have it with a building plan. We can go ahead and replace it now, or we could wait and replace them one at a time when they go out.
And to put it in perspective, 8 of those 10 units you're talking about replacing right now are 22 and 23 years old.
Yeah.
Days.
So that's why we're saying, yeah. Todd, do you have anything?
I don't think we're at a position yet to make the call. I think it's a good idea. I do get concerned about having refrigerant in 8-10 years down the line, but we can't answer that and we won't. So, and yeah, the fact that some of our units are 22 and 23 years old, we've blown past 10. If some of the ones that are now 10, and I mean, I'm probably would be leaning to keeping our existing units, because under the assumption that if we don't replace them all, we don't have to upgrade them all to the new unit as of the build, right? We can keep our existing units and replace them as they die. Is that an option?
So we're talking about like even not replacing them in the renovation? Is that what
I
I'm
hope so.
understanding?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand. We have 14 working units now. Do I have to replace those as part of the renovation?
No.
Okay.
Originally, when we told the architect we were doing this as a cost savings, they weren't gonna replace any of them, but then like, I don't know, somewhere in the process, we decided we might as well upgrade them. So we instructed them to put that in there, that we are gonna upgrade them.
Yeah. My opinion is whether we do it now or we do it as part of the contract, that we do need to replace them. And the reason why I say that is we're looking, like Josh said, 20-some years old. So you can't predict, yeah, maybe you'll get one more year of them, or maybe they'll all go the same time. And now thinking ahead of that as well, what happens if we do all this renovation, we say, oh, we'll replace them as whenever, and they all go at the same time? I don't think everybody's gonna be really happy that we've had everybody out of these buildings for a long time, and now all of a sudden we gotta, the AC's not.
So the likelihood of that occurring, if they're 22 and 23 years old, we've been running this risk for 5-8 years. So I'm not sure I buy they're all gonna break tomorrow scenario. Just sort of like when I was talking with Dave, if we put in all new units in 12 years on Monday, September 1st, they aren't all gonna die.
No.
So
I just like being more proactive than reactive. That's just me. Chris?
So if I could interject a little bit, you guys are all pretty much right. However, the older units, like I just had this year my original Lennox replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the cabinetry around that was like a safe. Okay, I could almost poke a hole through the new cabinets. Okay, the old ones lasted a long time, and that's why we have 20-year-old units. I'm amazed we have 20-year-old units. Whatever we're replacing that with, whether it's the ones you could get today or the ones you get next year, they will have a new lifespan of 10 to 12 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So it will never be like that again.
Right.
So I do think anything that we have, I think we only have 2 that are less than 8 years old.
Correct.
Okay. I think you replace anything over 8 to 10 years old, you replace.
Yeah.
So we would only keep 2 of them. We would enjoy a higher efficiency. You would have a higher SEER rating. And once windows change and everything in here, the manual J is going to change anyway. So.
Yeah. Chris?
That's my crystal ball. I hate spending money when I don't have to. Everything's working. But ditto just to what Frank just said. We're changing everything in this hall, all the windows to double pane, so we get better air conditioning, better heating. DeSantis is taking a look at our air conditioners and say, hey, they really need to be changed. They're working, but they need to be changed. And yeah, what about the 410A? Yeah, boy, what do? You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'm not sure that we need to change all of them, but I think we need to change a good amount of them because we are upgrading. We should upgrade them to higher SEER because, like I said, some of these things are 22, 23 years old. What the SEER rating at that time compared to what it is now, we could save a lot of money in the long run, I think. And any money that we would spend otherwise, I think we would save if we upgraded. I'm not saying all of them, but a good number of them.
We did just recently get a whole bunch of wish lists from committees. And we do have more money lately. We've had a little bit of an uptick in the funds that we have since the finance committee and the treasurer and everything have done such a great job. I would feel more comfortable spending this amount of money on air conditioning than trees or fountains or other things.
How dare you, Fred?
I know. So,
Dave, you have something?
One of the things I wanted to mention, that there's 4 months left in this year before we're into 2025, and I'm hearing at the table that you can't even get the equipment today. So all I want to caution people about is this is new technology we're talking about. So I'm not sure I'd want one of these units in January or February of 2025. I'm not sure they're going to be ready for prime time, to be honest with you.
I'd just like to see Josh get a couple more estimates for higher SEER rating, and so we could make a more informed decision.
Yeah.
I'm not asking anybody to decide anything now.
But that's where I was going, Frank, is that I like your recommendation that we take a look at going with the higher SEER ratings, because I can tell you, I replaced my central air a year ago this past January, and my electrical bill dropped significantly because I went with the highest SEER rating. I think it's 18 that I could get, and it's made a big difference. And I think we could do that for the complex. And I'm in agreement with you, Frank. Anything that's over 8 years old, we should replace.
Yeah.
One other benefit would be, and this is a minor one, but I believe, and I'd have to double check with Josh, the filters that we use now are just the regular old 1-inch filters that they change like every month or so. Typically they upgrade to the 4-inch filters that only have to be replaced once or twice a year. You could get a higher MERV rating. I would suggest a MERV 13, and that would...
Yeah, I've got the April Air, which is a yearly replacement.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so then are we saying that what we would like at this point then is to have Josh see if you can get one or estimates for a higher SEER?
Well, are we actually going to entertain, I don't mind doing this, but before we run everybody all over, are we actually entertaining separating this from the building project or not?
So let's assume there was no building project. Would we still be having the same conversation?
I would have already replaced half your units.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that tells me I'm more inclined to see them being replaced with the current technology than the new technology.
How much do we have in reserves that would be used towards this?
You know, a lot of them are coming due now, so I'd have to look at that. I also would tend to incline with Frank, if we're going to replace these before they die, I would like to see at least some of the funds come from the excess we're running this year and perhaps do a few less of those other projects. I'm not saying the whole amount, but at least some of it.
Mm-hmm.
And some would come from reserves, right? Yeah.
So just so that offhand, you can do half and half. I mean, we can afford to do this, and it sort of sounds like it's not a bad idea. It'll save us money in the long run.
Yeah.
Where I still get a little concerned and not understanding here is that if by doing double pane windows, we need a different load on the building, you know, how are we going to know that? But we can't be guaranteed we're going to go forward with the building.
But it only gets better, it won't get worse with
Right.
the new windows, so, right?
Right. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, Josh?
So
did
with
you
air
have-
conditioning, you want to have it sized somewhat correctly, because if it's too big, bigger isn't always better. Bigger, you get what they call meat locker syndrome, where it lowers the temperature quicker than it dehumidifies and it feels like a meat locker. So you don't want that. On the other side of the coin, you don't want it running continuously 24/7 because it has to keep up. Josh, if you could be so kind as to also find out from them, you know, what are they really saying? The law does say January 1st, 2025, R10 is gone for new installations, but they can't even get them yet. You're talking 4 months from now. I want to hear some real talk about when they expect the new ones in and how they expect to be compliant and things like that. And then we could also look at, you know, higher SEER ratings and see what we want to do.
So, for right now then, if SEER rating's a big deal, we need to change the specs in what they're gonna go out to bid for, because the units that are identified on the building plans are about what you're getting bids on. They're just a Carrier brand versus Trane.
There's
So-
no SEER requirement?
No. It has on there identified what exactly it is.
It's either 14 or 15.
Yeah, so there's that. And then, yeah, what I was told is that the only way you'd be able to get one after January is if you pre-ordered it in advance. And
In 24.
yes, and he said specifically, there might be a little bit of wiggle room, but if we don't already have the products on hand, we're not gonna be able to get it after that, because they're just not allowed to do it.
So the other big thing about this that may influence our decision, and I don't have a strong opinion one way or another yet, but typically when you get new units, you get, you know, a minimum of 5-year warranty on all parts. Sometimes they'll throw in another 5-year warranty on labor. And, you know, right now if one of our units dies, we're just screwed. We gotta call them and say, bring a new unit, and you're gonna pay $8,000 or so. So, you know, once we upgrade units, then there would be an inferred warranty, so.
And 1-year service.
Right.
So you can look at about $3,000
Yeah.
savings there too.
My question is too, Frank, you can tell me, one of the things that explained to me that when you get into the really higher SEER, that then you also have more electrical components, more of,
Well, yeah, you're getting into the weeds a little bit on it, but, you know, like a variable speed motor costs a real lot of money, costs a lot of money to replace. They're like $1,000 to replace, and so you do get other
But
complexities.
because they're variable speed, they're very reliable.
Yeah, so you do get other complexities. I wouldn't want to get into the weeds on that, but.
I think we just got, like Frank started to
Yeah.
go down, we gotta zoom out.
Yeah.
Do we want to handle this ourselves, or do we wanna have the architect/contractor handle it? That's really the question. There's a way we might be able to save money, the other way we're just going with basically what they bid on. So it's up to you guys.
I don't have a problem entertaining us
And-
doing it, but I think that if we're going down that road, we need to look at doing it before.
Well, it gives us flexibility. We can do it
Right.
before, after, never,
Right.
you know, as needed. But if you build it into the plans, they're going to bid on it. And
Right.
that's,
So is it possible to have them bid on it as a line item? Or sort of like Frank was originally talking about with the recycling?
Sure, they could make it, they could make it a line item, absolutely.
And I guess my other question is, if we did it ourselves, when would we need to decide by? Is this an October thing so that the HVAC folks have enough time to react to what?
well, we could probably wait till they're getting ready to send it out to bid, but basically this is us telling them the final instructions before they go to bid. So right now, our instructions are you are going to be replacing 16 of our units.
I sort of like the idea of doing it ourselves and making
I,
that decision.
I think that, like you, Josh was saying, that we take out that middle component, because we're going straight, you know, to the contractor himself in this case, you know.
And what I would recommend is that you do the social hall and the activities building yourselves and have them just do the fitness and admin, because that building is changing so much. There's so much ductwork that needs to be moved. I would just have them do that as they have plans to do it.
So that's not a concern in the activity building, in the
No.
building over there, even though they're expanding the wall?
It's, you're only moving the registers a little bit, so you're just basically adding on to the ductwork. It won't be that big of a deal.
So they would still be on the hook to change that ductwork?
Yeah, so before we added the ACs back in, our instructions were part of the specifications were that the contractor's responsible for relocating registers and returns.
Okay.
And that's basically how we would do it now. And we would just need to make sure, and we did with the proposal that I got, that they have the right size unit for that added space for each of those rooms, which we do.
So if we did the areas you're recommending and exclude the gym wing and the card room wing, how many units are we talking?
10.
Okay.
Chris, do you have anything more?
Yeah, I agree. We take care of the social hall and the activities building and let the architect bid on the others. Yeah.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that sounds like
Barb?
a good way to go.
Frank?
Yeah, and if we could find out different SEER ratings, if it's only a,
Yeah, because obviously I'm gonna have to get proposals.
Right.
This was just to give us an idea of what the actual cost would be and what potential savings might be.
we're gonna want all new thermostats placed.
I will make sure you're involved in the bid so we get everything you're concerned about.
We're gonna want the 4-inch filters.
And the Mervin rating or whatever it is, we'll figure it
MERV
out.
rating. MERV 13.
Yeah. All right, is everybody in agreement with all that? Yeah. Okay, is there anything else? Seeing nothing else? do we
Yeah,
have a
there is
roll-
one
oh,
thing
what?
else.
Go ahead.
Thank you to all the people that have had input, and there's been a bunch of you. And it's much appreciated, and we're finally getting, I can see the finish line up there. You know, it's only 3 or 4 miles away.
Yeah, yeah, everybody
thank
has
you to
done a
all.
great job. Yeah. Anybody else, anything? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Or, go ahead, sorry.
Before we adjourn, do we want to formally approve these plans to be sent down?
I would think, yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, right?
yeah.
I mean, because
Yeah,
because,
with the noted changes, yeah.
right, because we're now done with these, so we want them to be sent down. We need to make sure they're corrected, and then they go out for bid.
Yep. All right, you want to make the motion?
Sure, I'll make I'll make a motion that we approve the plans to be sent down to the architect.
I second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
All right.
All right, anything else? All right, does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn? Josh is pushing away, I'm ready.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all very much.